I always talk about the fact that I didn't understand or realise that I needed to transition until the age of sort of 26, 27 years old. But when I look back and I see myself as a child and the decisions that I used to make and the behaviours and the worries and the anxieties, I absolutely knew from the age of, 4 or 5. I just didn't have the vocabulary to verbalise what I was feeling, and I didn't know transitioning existed. So it was only the first time we ever had a conversation was when I came back from my military tour and made the decision to come out of the military, and was in probably like one of my worst spaces, like mentally. And I said to my mum, is it because I want to be a boy? Is that why I'm so depressed? Is that what's wrong with me? And in that moment, my mum was like, no, you're this beautiful, athletic, gorgeous woman. She used to call me Miss Congeniality. She's like, you wouldn't be you if you weren't Jess, and in that moment, that's kind of what we both believed. But, you always say to me now, don't you, if I'd have said, yeah, Jess, you should have been a boy, and then I thought, okay, my mum says it's all right, I'll do it, and then it was the wrong decision, she would have never forgive herself. Like, it had to come from me. But I think the question in general had come from years and years of me receiving derogatory comments in terms of being called a man. Through my childhood and in school, and even, as a young woman, in women's toilets and all these things. And I used to get that a lot, and it used to break my heart, which is quite ironic. But, it came from that, didn't it? And I just thought, is that what it is? So after we had that first conversation, we buried it. I buried it again for another few years.
So that was when you were how old?
I was 24.
Yeah. And how old are you now?
30.
So you buried it for a couple of years. But interesting that one of your first conversations about whether you wanted to transition was with your mum.
Yeah.
Which is amazing. So Sharon, do you remember anything about that day, that conversation?
I can remember things before that, actually, even when, as Jess, it was coming up to prom day, and we was going round and finding the right outfit and thinking, get your nails done and get your makeup done, and we'd be walking from one appointment to another, and she would just be looking at me saying, but I look like a man, I look like a boy, I can't. And I couldn't tell her enough that you do not look like a boy, you're beautiful, you're gorgeous, and I think from there she really, really tried to feel like she fitted in that female body, but something just wasn't right. She just did not feel right. Tried all sorts of things to make it feel right, but I think for me it was from then. And there was a seed there in the back of my mind thinking there's something not quite right. Yeah. And it was when all your hormones were kicking in, and I think then it was like, to you it was like, oof, it was completely upside down.
Hormones kicking in as in puberty?
Yes, yeah.
So this is like 16?
14, 15, 16, yeah.
Interesting. So and this is, no offence, Jax, but that's a little while ago. But what did you know about transgender people at that point?
Nothing at all. Honestly, nothing at all. Never, because there was nobody in our family or circle of friends that was transgender. It's just something that we didn't look into. I didn't need to investigate it because we were busy, 3 children, bringing them up. It was not something that I thought, oh yeah, this is really a thing, I'll go and find out all about that as much as I can, because it was just a fleeting thing that was in my head, but the seed had been planted. Just went with seeing where you went from then, from growing up, going to college, going to university, no, that's not right, or going to the RAF, loved it, no, that's not right. It just, you can fit everything now and look back at it all and think, I know why that happened, or I know why then she did this. You can look back at things and think, it just all fits. And now I understand what happened at the time when it did happen. But then you've no idea.
Because you've spoken a bit about Jax being someone who was always seeking things.
Yeah.
Tell me a bit about that.
That's what I mean about feeling as though she didn't fit into something with friends at school. When she was 14, she had a lot of friends in school, but again felt like she was getting called at school. She was very, very sporty and very competitive, and could beat any boy in any sport, and was determined to. was determined to do it. This is, I'll beat you. But then it just didn't fit in with the friends, and I want to move school. So we managed to move schools. Within 3 weeks, no, Mum, it's the wrong thing, I need to move back. Right. And I was like, oh my God. But we did it. But when I look back at things, it was because she couldn't find where she then fitted. Yeah. I don't feel like I fit with the girls. I don't feel like I fit with the boys. And it was just probably then, like I said, at that age, all the hormones were kicking in. But you couldn't understand what was going on herself.
I was like desperate to find the real me, weren't I? And, I didn't just come home one day and be like, I want to move school, and they let me. It was months and months of me going, no, I want to move school. But there was no reason behind it. I just had this, I speak, when I believe something and I feel it, I speak with such passion about it that I would be like, I need to move, it's right, I need to move. And I think over months seeing me so like, well, you must want to do this. Yeah. And then being there for a month and going, no, I want to go back. I was just constantly constantly trying to find the real me, because I always felt like if I go and start again, I can be the real me. I just didn't know what the real me was. So then I'd move to a different thing and still be the same and still have the same experiences and still end up in the same environment, think, well, what? I'll have to go back.
Yeah, it's what's that saying? Wherever you go, you'll find yourself. As in, you can't run away from
No, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
She always felt like, oh, I'll go and do this and that'll be the right thing. Yeah. That'll sort everything. A few months down the line, no, that's not right. I'll go and do such a thing. I'll be fine then. And then, don't feel right about this.
Yeah. And as a family, like, how do you talk about your pronouns and pre-transition and all of that? Because I've noticed with your family, you do refer to Jess and she and stuff, and was that something you discussed, or?
Yeah, I mean, for me, going into this, I knew that it was going to affect everybody. Like, I knew that transitioning doesn't just affect me, it affects everyone around me. And we've always been such a close, strong family that I knew that I wanted to go into that with the most understanding as possible. And I always say, like, they gave birth to a daughter. They named that daughter. They had thoughts and feelings and dreams about that daughter. They've had 28 years of Jess. That's not just going to go away, And when we were struggling in the beginning and, they didn't want to let go of the little girl, all I was saying was, I have to do this, otherwise I'm not going to be here. So I don't care if you call me Jess or she for the rest of my life. All I care about is that you try. And that you accept that this is what I have to do to be here. And over time, I knew that with time and space and understanding, that would change. If I just decided that my name was Chris now, they'd be like, what? It's the same thing. You've got to allow people that time and that space to understand and learn. And that's what we've done over the last 3 years. We've learned, and we still do it. You still call me Jess or she, but you're going to. Just put no power in it. Because it's not malicious.
But you're very good with that, though, because you allow people to make the mistakes and doesn't even flinch about it, because you knew at the beginning we were upset, thinking, what if I say the wrong thing to you? What if I call you Jess? What if I say she? And he said straight away, like that, it doesn't matter, Mum. It doesn't matter. I know you're trying, and I know you will always try, and we will always try. And 3 weeks out before we get it right, and it's always Jax, and then one day it might just come out.
Yeah, from you spend 28 years shouting Jess or she or talking about, you've got to allow people that, whether they've known you for a year or 30 years. I think by doing that allows people to relax, and people then learn and change once they're relaxed around you, because they know that they can make the mistake and it stays with them then. Whereas when they know they can't, they're always panicking, they're always on edge, you don't have natural conversations, they end up making more mistakes, and then you're both uncomfortable, and then I just didn't want that. I just wanted to be treated the same. I just wanted them to try and just accept me for who I was.
And you've always said you don't want to forget Jess.
I know it, yeah. No, I definitely
Jess is with us, so...
Right.
Yeah.
Really? Tell me more about that.
Yeah, I speak about Jess in the third person because I never wanted to, I said to my family, I'm not killing Jess. she's not gone. Like, I don't want you to delete anything, you know, and I can only speak from my own experience, but I don't want you to delete anything. I don't want you to get rid of pictures. I don't want you, you know, she's not gone. Like, she's coming with me. I just can't have her be the image. And over time, that was exactly right, because I'm exactly the same. I'm just naturally happy. And it was literally that. It was literally just like I had Jess and Jax as a picture, and I just had to go. And that's literally all I needed to do. And Jess is, you know, when you come out and you know, I said I'm transitioning, in that moment, what you don't realise is I just lost I felt like I'd just lost everything that Jess was. You know, I'd lost this ex-military, rugby playing, gay woman, you know, this whole identity that I'd built for 27 years. And I've come out now, so I have to be Jax, but I don't know who Jax is yet. And I still look like Jess, and I've not started hormones, but I've told you now, so I have to be Jax, so I can't hide behind Jess anymore. And at that point was the in-between point where I was more suicidal than ever. And I was thinking, you're meant to be happy, but you have to take the time to figure out who Jax is. And over that time, I've brought everything that I loved about Jess and everything that Jess is with me, and formed the identity of who I truly am. And I think that's really, for me, that was really, really important, because I didn't want to forget 28 years of my life. It's part of my journey. It makes me me. So I get like quite emotional. Like I see Jess as someone who I really just want to go, it's going to be okay. Do you know what I mean?
It's like, now you've found the right fit and you feel,
yeah,
this is me, this is right.
Like I wish I could just be like, it's going to be okay. Like,
and tell yourself that before.
Yeah.
Yeah, and around that time, so, you know, Jax has decided that Jax is Jax.
Yeah.
But actually you were saying, in a way, it was hardest for you at that point. What was that point like for you, Sharon?
That was hard, because you can see your child hurting, going through something that you can help, but you can't help. You just feel like, I just want to fix it. I just want to fix it today and everything be all right for you. And that's all we could do, was be there and just show Jax that whatever he needed, we were there. He had all our love, all our support. He was safe. Whatever he was going through, we was on this journey with him. So that's the only way for us. We felt we could, you know, deal with it and support our child on this journey. Help any way we could. We're here. Whatever you think you need to do, we're here.
It's amazing.
Talk.
And when you spoke a minute ago about knowing that something was up with Jax when Jax was a teenager, like, do you think that's like parental intuition? And do you think you just knew because you just kind of do know what's going on?
She was born on Halloween, she's a witch.
Yeah, that's true.
She knows me like the back of her hand, though.
Yeah.
Like.
Yeah, I do.
And what does it feel like to know there's something up with your kid? Because I imagine, what was school like before all of that, and you were just a different kid, right? Like, that's tough. And what's that like to watch your child go through it and know that there's something but you don't know what it is?
We had a conversation about this the other week, didn't we? I can't really access what it was like at school for me. I've got little bits, but a lot of things went on at school, whether that was, you know, types of bullying, mental bullying, or being called a man and feeling these things and being anxious and, you know, running out of shops because I couldn't stand picking clothes and all these things. I remember these things, but it's like I can't access them, and I think I've like blocked it out because it was the time in my life where I just didn't feel okay. I didn't feel comfortable at all. So my mum knows way more about about school than I do.
So what was that kid like?
From being little, like being in junior school, growing up, I think we always just knew that Jess is a tomboy, because I always wanted boys' things, even going into like a big shop like Toys R Us one day for her birthday and wanted to buy this big pink Barbie car, and she wouldn't get out of this tractor. She would not get out of this great big tractor, the biggest thing you could find in Toys R Us, and guess what? We ended up coming home with that, and she played with it for years. She wouldn't go anywhere near anything that was pink. Played football, played rugby, I'll go and play golf. Don't want to do anything else that's girly. Fantastic at sport, but very competitive. But going for clothes, like that side, what you've always said, would just always pick something that was boyish, but didn't feel right in the girl things, but didn't understand that. And I remember one day, one of my cousins got married, and then Jess and my other daughter Nicola were both bridesmaids. So they had to wear this gorgeous dress, and she just wanted to go in this football kit. Can't do that today, darling. You've got to wear this dress, please. Just for one day, you've got to wear it. Cried all day. And then that night at the reception, we said, right, come on, we'll just take you to the toilets, get you all, make sure you feel okay. I just went like that to lift her dress up to fix the undergown, and she had these football shorts on underneath, which I didn't even know. And she'd had them on all day, and I thought, oh my God. But we all laughed about it all night. That's who she was. Determination was, well, I'm putting something on that's boyish. So these football shorts were on, but we didn't have a clue.
And did you have comments from other parents, and how did that make you feel?
Nothing from comments in the way that, I think she's going to end up transitioning. Nothing about anything like that. We just all knew she was a tomboy, and that was fine. Really? No, nothing wrong with that. That is fine.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it wasn't a problem. It was just, that's Jess. That's how she is.
It makes me quite emotional listening to that story, because, like, being able to look back at that now and see that kid, there must have been so much going on with me. Like, I am so uncomfortable. How old was I? I cannot wear this dress without shorts on. It makes me feel the pain. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think you must have felt there's just this need of, like, I can't not have the shorts on.
Well, someone said this thing about, because I've got an 18-month-year-old. Someone was explaining something to me about toddlers, saying they have needs, not wants. Like, so they're not, like, sometimes people will say, like, a little kid is, and I'm probably going to get this wrong, please don't come for me, people. Like, someone was talking about, like, an 18-month-year-old kid being, like, manipulative, like going, oh, they're not really crying, or they're da-da-da-da. And I was like, I don't really buy into that. I think, like, if they're saying they want something, just try and address that. Don't, like, try and imagine there's a veneer of them trying to manipulate. We've got teenagers for that. So, but you basically operate on instinct, don't you? And that's your instinct. It's like you want to wear those football shorts, and you don't want to wear the bridesmaid dress. And it's very hard. Like, I think back to, like, so when we would go to Toys R Us, I would want the doll. And my dad was so cool, he'd just get me the doll. And he would, like, actually kind of protect me from people's reactions. And he was just so cool with it. But it's like, for a parent who does, like, what you did and what my dad did.
Yeah, that's amazing.
I can't tell you how it's like a pillar of love is created.
Yeah.
Because you're like, because you weren't doing anything wrong. And yes, there's all this duress that you get all these arguments against what you're doing, which sadly are flaring up even more now than probably when I was a kid. It's so incredible that there are parents out there doing that. And also, I think it's important to say to parents who are wondering, that is all you need to do. Just, like,
oh my God. Yeah. Like, when people ask me, like, what do people need in a family? What do people need from a parent? What do people need from an employer? All anybody needs is to feel loved, accepted and safe. And if you do that and you provide that, they will thrive, because they know that they're in a safe space to just be themselves. And if you change your mind, that's all right. You just, you've got your whole life. If you're going to change your mind. You're not going to be the same forever. Yeah. And so you might make a decision and it might not be right. And you've just got to just let people figure it out and let children be themselves and go, if you want to play with a doll, play with a doll. If you like that forever, that's fantastic. If you change to Action Man next week, that's fine. And you'll figure that out as you grow up.
But then for you, Sharon, like, who was teaching you to be lovely and accepting like that? What discussions were you having with your husband? Because often it's the men who have more challenges around that stuff.
I think he loved it, because you beat him up.
I think it was just something that she was our daughter, that's how she was. It just wasn't a problem. It was just, Jess, this is how Jess is. She was still loving and fantastic and, cuddle you. And it's not as though she was like, oh, my boy, I'm not going to touch you. I don't cuddle, I don't kiss. It was nothing like that. It was just, we just loved her the way she was.
Yeah.
You know, she was just, you just accept your child for the way they are because they're yours.
But also, I suppose, because there is a language around tomboys, right? So you're like, I can identify that. And then,
Yeah.
you know, but then when you sit down with Jax, fast forwarding now, to a few years later, and you're having that first conversation about maybe I am a boy, were your words, like, that was uncharted waters at the time, right? And take me through, from a parent's perspective, a bit what that was like, and because that's the thing that parents don't have the resources for yet.
I think the first thing that she, as Jess then did say to us was, I think it was when you'd just gone into the RAF, she came home one day and she said, I just need to talk to your mum and dad, and obviously 2 other children, Nick and Tez, and, you know, can we all just sit down and talk? And so we did that. We was all sat around the dining room table. Right, come on, what's wrong? What do you want to talk about? And she just burst out crying, and she said, I've just got to tell you I'm gay. And we just all looked at each other and then looked back at her and said, and, is that it?
Yeah.
And she just looked at us all and said, what? I said, we all knew that, so what? And Tez, who's the smallest, he's 24 now, but little brother at the time, just said,
like 10 years ago now, isn't it?
can I go back and play on my PlayStation now? Is that all it is? So it was just like, to you at the time, it was like this great big terrifying thing that, God, what my mum and dad say? But to us, it was just like, okay, that's who you are, that's who you are. We kind of knew that anyway. Yeah. We'd fathomed it out, you just hadn't got there yet, and we're fine with it. So it was like, to us it wasn't a big deal, but to you it was like, oh, thank God, the relief. And that was fine for a while. Yeah. But then in your mind, you just knew that wasn't all. But I think you was trying to find out
that was definitely not in my mind. You know, that thought was not in my mind. Like, because I didn't know or believe it was a thing. You know, I always say to people now, you know, people hear the word transgender and just instantly think a man in a dress. Because of years and years of clumsy representation in the media, where it's always the prostitute that gets murdered, it's always the big burly man in the dress who's the trans woman, and that's what people think instantly. And there wasn't the visibility and the representation, so I didn't know what it was. All I knew was I had bad mental health, and I was constantly trying to fill a void. And when I joined the military, it filled a lot of those things because it kept me so busy physically, mentally. I was in a uniform, so I didn't have to decide what to wear. It made me stand tall. It made me stand proud. I felt tough. I felt strong. I was in a stereotypically masculine role. I was suddenly surrounded by all these confident, you know, strong, independent, powerful women who were gay, who owned that, and they knew the self, and they dressed like me. You know, they didn't dress really boyish, but they didn't dress really girly, and they were just, and I just thought, oh my God, this is me. You know, this is who I am. And, you know, I was terrified to come out because I didn't know any gay women in Wigan 10 years ago. So I thought, well, this is the RAF world. What's Wigan going to think? You know, and I mean, I was squeezing my sister's hand, like terrified. I had it tattooed on me because I was just like, when you come out and, you know, you can relate, there's always a tiny percentage of you that goes, what if they disown me? No matter how much, you know that we all love each other and we're the strongest family ever, but what if they're not okay?
What if they're not okay, but also what if I'm wrong? You know, like, I don't think that you ever know, like, you do know, but at the same time, you, in big decisions and big announcements, you can be like, what's that for?
Yeah.
When I came out, I was like, I'm not sure. I think I am.
Yeah.
Turns out I was right. But, like, it's you're not, people come to you like you're certain. Actually, it's why I love what you said earlier when you said, you know, when you come out as trans, it's the beginning of a journey for you. Whereas actually what people do in the media to trans people is be like, well, what are you? You know? Yeah. It's like, no offense, but I haven't got a clue.
No.
I'm just beginning this journey. And if I've just come out, I'm now going to start on, you know, medical transition if I want to, and all of those things, but I might not want to. I need to work all that out. Because one thing I didn't, you know until, you know, a few years ago, let's say, is like, I obviously knew what trans people were, you know, I'm talking years ago now, but like the whole movement around like trans people who don't have any kind of physical or medical transition, and all, you know, the the beautiful
Yeah.
spectrum.
Yeah.
You know, like you can be part of that, and that's something that I don't know, it's all there to be discovered at that time. And yeah, I don't know why I went on to that, but I think that it's an important thing to say, because it's a moment that you're all a little moment of discovery together, right?
Yeah, and then there isn't just one way to be trans, and I think that's that people don't realise that. You know, people ask me all the time, "Oh, have you gone the whole hog?" And I'm just like, and you know, luckily I'm someone who it doesn't impact at all. I'm just like, well, for me, you know, whatever, and I wouldn't really advise asking someone that, and to try and help people learn, because I know it's not coming from a bad place. But you know, some people take hormones and don't have surgery. Some people have surgery and don't take hormones. Some people don't have anything but want to identify differently. Some people, you know, want to have absolutely everything possible and feel aligned with themselves, and that's okay.
There's no right or wrong, is there? It's what you feel. It's what's right for you as a person.
And what, you know, going back to my mum and my family, what they've taught me is what unconditional love is. You know, and we was having the conversation with my dad the other day. People say, you know, and all these politicians and people who are against transition and all these things, you love your kids unconditionally, but they can't be trans. Well, that's not unconditional then. No. You know, and that people, I think, need to realise what unconditional love actually is. You know, they're your child, and that's why, you know, at the protest and when I made the speech and things like that, that's the only question I would ever ask someone, which is, well, what happens if your child comes to you tomorrow and says, I either take my own life or transition? What's your answer then? Yeah. Because that's all it comes down to.
Yeah. And the reason that there are caveats around unconditional love is fear, right?
Absolutely.
And that's what we're trying to do our own little bit of solving here today. And I wonder so after Jax told you that he wanted to transition, and then Jax wanders off, and you're
drops that bombshell, leaves you with that.
And then
excuse me, Dad came out for me both times. So the first time when I was sat 10 years ago, and I was sat down crying my eyes out, terrified to say I'm gay, and he just sits down there, and I say this all the time, but I can only describe my dad as a blonde Peter Kay. Right? That's how he talks. That's his mannerisms. He makes himself laugh. So he sits down, and obviously it's all serious. So he has a smirk on his face, and he's like, "You gay, aren't you?"
He's very blunt, very straight.
And I'm just like, "Yeah, I'm sorry. Is that okay? Like, is that okay? I'm sorry." Yeah. And then we had like a fantastic conversation, and it was all fine because they all knew before I did. And then 10 years later, I sit down and I'm sat there, and they know that I cause carnage once a year anyway, so we're sat around the dining room table, so they know something's coming. And he decides to start guessing again. So he's like, "You're pregnant?" I'm like, "No." "You're getting a puppy?" So I was like, "No." And then he goes, "You're not having a sex change, are you?" Complete joke. Like, complete joke. And I was just like, oh my God, shit. Like, yeah, like terrified, like, yeah, I am. Because where'd you go from there? Like, he's just said it, and I was just looked at him, and I was like, yeah. And the colour from his face just disappeared. Like, the atmosphere in the room, you know, because no one else knew it was coming, and my mum was the only person who had a slight inkling. And, you know, I mean, you can talk about that, but my dad was gobsmacked and terrified, and immediately thought, we have to leave Wigan because I'm going to end up punching everybody for abusing you.
Yeah, he was just frightened of people attacking Jess as wanting to become a man, and so it was just fear, panic in him straight away, thinking, well, I'm not having that happen, so I'll move, I'll take her away and we'll go somewhere else and nobody will know us, and we'll be okay and we'll protect her. It was like just fear. I think that is panic and fear just hit him straight away until it just needed to think about things and let it settle in his own mind. And
I think that's what hits every parent, because trans people's existence is questioned constantly within the media, and people are still murdered and attacked for these things, and their rights being questioned. And, you know, that happened just a few weeks ago, and I was like, and it's fear of all of that, but I think it's also fear of everyone else and what you're going to say, and because there's a lot of shame attached to it, and there shouldn't be, but obviously we're building as a society now, but there has been a lot of shame surrounding being trans, and I struggled with that for a long time, and I still do at times, but I think there's just a mixture of that. It's all just fear, even when you can't do that, but it's fear.
Yeah, and that fear that you and your husband, what's his name, sorry?
Terry.
That fear that you and Terry had.
Yeah.
Completely valid. What was your first conversation like after Jax had told you? Because Terry's scared, so are you. Do you remember that conversation?
I think I remember us being in bed that night and probably not really sleeping, just keep asking each other things and talking it over, and little things had come into your mind, and it was never fear or panic about, right, well, don't want to know him now, you can go and live somewhere else. It was that never entered our mind, thank God. It was just, what can we do to help? How can we help him be the right person? Is he thinking clearly? Is this really what he wants to do? Is it, all we can do now is like find everything out for him and go on this journey and see, is this the right way? And that was the main thing, that after we'd decided, oh no, we're not moving, and thinking, because honestly all of our family and all of our friends have been amazing.
Yeah, incredible.
They've just all been there, back you up, been with us, been really supportive. And I think what helped as well was when you came out of the military and you were struggling, and you went into the prison, and our doctor, nurse practitioner, and the nurses have helped so much with you on this journey, that we always felt like we had support. Always had that support, didn't we?
Yeah.
So we had family, we had friends, and we even had the nurse practitioner and the nurse on our side. So it was like we had a safety blanket anyway. It was like, we don't need to move, we can cope with this, we're fine.
That's great.
We'll help him do whatever is needed.
Well, it's funny because no matter how old that child of yours is, you feel like any problem of theirs is yours to solve, right?
Yeah.
So you need to solve it. So, on a practical level, what were the first things you did? Did you Google stuff? What was most useful for you at that time?
I can't say I did Google anything.
Really?
Whether Terry did, that never entered my mind. I think it was just, these are our kids, our children, whatever's going on, we help. But it never entered my head to look into anything. I don't ever recall doing that. I just thought, whatever, you'll show me the way of kind of which way you want it to go. Yeah. And then I'll help you, and then I'll start looking into things to see which way I can help you do it, but I'll take the lead from you. Like we said earlier, I would never have said, I think you should be a man. Go and do it.
Interesting, yeah. And so did you know, Jax, a bit about what your next steps were?
Yeah, so I it was not in my head at all. I buried it from that conversation we had about, do I need to be a boy 2 years ago? And it only came about because I had a conversation with someone about mental health while I was working in the prison, and said, like, really blasé, I used to struggle with my mental health. I used to think I wanted to be a man. And just sort of said it, like, dealt with that. And as soon as I said it, it just stuck. And it was like there'd been 26 years of like the universe trying to say, you're going to have to do this at some point. And as soon as I had that conversation, it just stuck. And I spent a year not saying a word and just dived into this YouTube hole of finding all these trans men and figuring out that that was a thing, and that you could change, and they were changing their bodies, and they were being models, and they were having careers, and they were really happy. And I was thinking, like, I could do that. Like, I mean, I was looking at them thinking, that's fantastic, but I can't do that. Like, I can't do that in Wigan. I certainly can't do that in a prison, and I can't do that to my family. So I kind of like wanted to just live vicariously through YouTube whilst being a prison officer and thinking, well, it exists, so I'm all right. And obviously I didn't realise that I just became more and more angry with the world the more I was accepting who I really was, and I was becoming really quite envious of these people living how I could live. And it started to take a toll on my mental health, which is why I then ended up making the decision to transition. and I forgot the question.
It was a good answer. So have I. But then, so who were your...
Oh, the resources. Sorry, I've remembered.
Yeah. Who were those YouTubers? And also particularly, because we should give a nice updated answer, because obviously since then it's lots of more people have started sharing. But particularly for trans men, like I just think...
There's not a lot, yeah.
The resources are a lot less.
Yeah, and it's a lot less... people have a lot less knowledge about trans men. They're not as prominent in the media. For me, I found people like Laith Ashley, who's the first trans person I showed you, and a guy called Benjamin Meltzer. I think he's in Germany. Laith Ashley's in America. There wasn't a great deal, but there was someone. These two people reminded me of me. You know, and I knew that I've always had a passion for like building a strong body and being sporty and wanting all these things. And I'm thinking, you know, I was talking the other day about having a dream of like being a male model, but could never ever voice that dream because it could never be real. Yeah. And now like I'm like on this mission and I'm doing all these things and people probably think, well, where's that come from? But there are all these little dreams that I could never actually wish for because I thought, well, you can't be a male model, you're a girl. And so those people really, really helped me, and it made me want to be that for so many other people because it made me go, that's who I am. And it's okay. And you can do this.
Brilliant. And then what about telling the family? Was there a big sit down? How did you address it?
With just us five, brother and sister, we was all together when you talked about it. And then I think... for a few weeks, we all went off and just thought about it ourselves. Yeah, you did. You sent us all a big message, and Nick probably dealt with it in her way and talked to some friends, and Tez, you know, because he's a young lad, and I think he dealt with it in different ways at the time, not knowing quite who to say to, you know, what to say to people. Should I tell people? Whereas, like me and your dad, we were just, you know, this is our family, we're going to have to tell them and be honest and see what their reaction is, and if they don't like it and they're not on board with it, well, that's okay, that's up to them. But Jax is our child, and we're going to support him whether they're on board or not. 3 children come first, but thankfully they were all with us. They were all on your side, weren't they?
Yeah, and I think it's credit to like us as a family, but my mum and dad and the people that they are, and from what everyone's told me, the approach that I and we have taken with it, where I said to you, I want to take everyone on this journey with me, and that was the same with going back to the prison and with the prisoners and the staff and all these things. I wanted to allow people to make mistakes and understand and learn, and I wanted it to feel normal, and because it drove me mad that it was so terrifying to just be yourself. And I was thinking, this shouldn't be like this, and I've said I'm going to do this properly, so I'm going to do it properly and change how people see this.
We've just been honest and open with anybody, so this is us, this is what we're like. And
then like everything I did, so I started trying to like do podcasts and do different things right from probably 6 months into transitioning, because I wanted to document everything, and everything I did I would tell you, or I would send her a message, be like, I'm doing this podcast today because this visibility is this important because and this saves lives. And I would like give you a load of things on why I was doing something. And over time, doing all those things, then going, look how important that is. Look what someone's just texted me. Like, look, this woman's just messaged me about her son who's self-harming, and they've seen my video. And then I think slowly you and my dad and everyone started to see the impact of that as well. Inspiring other people to just live a life more true to themselves, whatever that might mean. And so I think over time, you always used to say to me, thanks for that, because then when people ask me, I can say, always doing this because, and you're involved, and take them with you. Like it's really hard to allow people who want to support you because you feel so like, don't look at me, I'm a freak, I'm like half man, half woman, like I feel so embarrassed, I was so ashamed of in that first few months of who I was, and I didn't want to let anyone support me. But I thought, but they want to help me here, I've got to let them.
You at first felt like you needed to go away and do it all
Yeah,
on your
ran
own,
off.
and went
Yeah.
off to Brighton thinking, "Oh, I can't do this in Wigan, I can't do this and let everybody see me going through all these changes," and then quickly realised a couple of months in, God, I need my family. I need to be with my family and friends. I can't do this by myself.
Yeah.
Thankfully, came home and that's
Yeah.
what we did.
Wow, that's so cool.
It was
And that is all you need. Like, that has absolutely been proven, that all you need is a good support network around you. You know, we didn't go, I didn't, you didn't, we didn't go looking for resources. We did, you know, they're all fantastic, but personally, I didn't really do that, and you didn't do that, because all we've been really passionate about always is have the difficult conversations. Just talk. And if it's not figured out, talk again and talk again and talk again and keep talking it out and talking it out. And that is what we've done with everything, but especially this. That's what it needed, because you've just got to keep having that conversation that you don't want to have, and it makes you uncomfortable. It makes you flip-your-lid. It makes you really upset. You know, different emotion every day. But you've got to just keep. You know, I need to understand this for you, and how it affects you. And they need to understand how this is affecting me, as well as going, I feel like this and you feel like that. And I think that gets missed a lot.
Yeah, we've always done it from being little, without anything to do with being trans. From all being young children, we've always said, if there's anything wrong, just talk, just come and tell us, because we don't know, we can't help. Whatever it is, we'll help you fix it, but just talk. Just keep that communication going. That would be the biggest thing I could say to anybody's parents who's going through it, friends, family. Just keep that communication open. Show them that they're loved, and show them that you'll make them feel safe, and that just keep talking and learn about things together.
Yeah, it's amazing and amazingly simple, but also kind of rare. And it's just incredible to listen to you lot and how you communicate. It's like, it's unreal. And actually, like, my mum used to say stuff like that to me, and I have often wondered, I'm like, listen, I'm no walk in the park, but I'm like, I wonder why I never went off the rails and all of that. And I think it's because, it might be because my parents were just like, yeah, just tell us. You know what I mean? We can solve it. And there's like anything that's a problem, if you speak about it, you can solve it.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's not always the case. But you must be so incredibly proud of Jax, right?
Yeah, extreme. I mean, I've always been proud of all three of them, but doing all this at the minute and trying to take everybody on the journey with him to help other people as much as he can, that makes me feel even more proud to another level, because I think this is not something he's doing, just like, oh, look at me. He's doing it to try and help bring awareness for other people, to make other people, like you've always said, live their truth.
Yeah.
Be true to themselves.
Can we just talk a little bit about sort of the, what was the word you used earlier? Hello. Can we just talk a bit about the medical side of things? Because I think that, there you go, there's that hand again. Can we just talk about the medical side of things? Because I know that that's something that you have to sort of go through together, as it were. And tell me a bit about your journey and your involvement, because I know that is something that's really scary for parents. And particularly right now, I don't think people even know what they can and cannot not get on the NHS, for example. Yeah,
I mean, I get so many messages of people saying, what do I do? Like, what do I do? Because if you go to the NHS now and approach your doctor or whatever and say that you want to transition, the likelihood of you being seen just for a first consultation is 20 years. Because the waiting list is that long now. There aren't the resources, there aren't the people qualified and specialised in these things, and it's just not available. And people will take their own lives because of that, because they can't wait, especially when people finally come to these decisions, especially, adults and, people like me, and you take that long to come to a decision. You can't then go, oh well, I can't do another 20 years. I couldn't do like another year. I was panicking. So obviously there are private options which still takes you a year or two to get a consultation, and that's just to even be assessed, to then be diagnosed with gender dysphoria, or for someone to say you need counselling. Let's assess whether this is something you really want. And obviously that's very, very expensive. Luckily I was in a position where I saved up and I went through a private healthcare. And so initially what you do is you have the consultation, which a psychiatrist goes through everything with you and what you understand about transitioning. Is it something that you really want? Do you understand the impacts of it, the effects of hormones? This is irreversible. Is this, and sort of assesses how you felt your whole life and why you want to do it and all these things. And then they will either say, right, well, I'm going to refer you for counselling, or because I'm not sure, or I'm going to now refer you on to an endocrinologist to sort your hormones if that's what you want to do. And so then after that, you wait a while, and then I've got another appointment with an endocrinologist who then will assess your blood work and discuss what, going on to hormones and stuff like that. In terms of surgery for me, I've only had chest surgery, and I made the decision to go to America for that. One of the reasons was I had to wait a lot longer in this country to live as Jax before they would allow me to do it. And I wanted to see a surgeon who I knew understood to put the scars in the right place. And there's a lot of surgeons out there who don't do it for the right reasons and will just cut you down the middle and leave you in a mess, and you want to build your dream body, and it was important for me to have that aesthetic. So I've spent about £15,000 so far on transitioning. For example, female to male bottom surgery is about £60,000, and about 4 operations, and a hell of a lot of pause on your life, especially for me right now. But it's all the different things, whether it's male to female, female to male, they're all at different levels of development, and how developed they are, and the quality of different things, and how you can access them, and the waiting lists and all these things. So it's really individual to each person, but the fact that it is so scarce and you do have to wait a long time if you want to go through the NHS is dangerous.
And can you fully transition on the NHS theoretically if it weren't for all the waiting times, or is there always going to be an element that has to be private?
I think the problem is if you don't have a supportive doctor, your GP can go, no,
Right.
which is, out of order. Because, so for example, I went private to get assessed for the hormones, but what they then do is they do a shared care agreement with your GP. They won't just provide the hormones. So they have to go through a shared care agreement where they're there for support, but it's your GP and who provides the prescriptions. So if your GP turns around and says, "Nah, you're not transitioning," if I changed GP now and they suddenly decided they were against trans, they could stop me taking hormones and have that control on my life. And that is the case for a lot of people. They don't have a supportive GP.
Yeah.
And GPs are obviously not trained in it either, which I think is being pushed at the minute to get GPs to be able to do these things, because that would catastrophically bring down the waiting list, because GPs would be able to deal with these things and prescribe hormones, or talk through these things, or at least even have more of an idea of what's going on. Because as fantastic as my doctor has been, she had to learn and ask me and speak to the private company that I went through, and to learn and what we needed to do and when we needed to monitor bloods, and there's just not the knowledge. I just got given a load of hormones, and I was like, well, we had to go looking for needles. I didn't know what needles to use, and I inject myself every 10 days. But initially I was like, well, Mum, we're gonna have to go to Boots and see if they'll give us some needles. I just think, well, how do I do this? And I was on YouTube. And there's just not the knowledge, and it's a shame, because I think there's too many people who just don't want to know, because it's not affected my life yet. And as soon as it does affect someone's life, that's when the mindsets change.
And you said, Sharon, medical professionals, for want of a better word, that were really helpful and you really liked? Were they here or in America or?
No, that was our own general practice, our own GP.
Right.
Yeah, the doctor there and the nurses there, who I think because they've always been our doctor, but they've seen Jax's journey from going into the RAF, then coming out of the RAF and obviously being back with our doctor. They knew the state that then as Jess that she was feeling, and we kept going in and we'd have different meetings and seeing
I was really depressed and
really down and didn't know, coming out of the RAF, going starting in the prison service, but was really mixed up about yourself. So they've like gone on the journey with us and been really supportive. And the nurse even asked a couple of times, knowing that as Jess was a gay woman, but did actually come out and say, do you think that you want to transition? Do you think you want to be a man? I can't tell you how many times. No, I don't want that. No, I don't want to do that.
Really? So when you were asked that question, were you like online with my answer, or you just weren't there yet?
I just wasn't there yet. I was just like, no, absolutely not. And that's what I mean. It was just not a thing in my head, apart from the fact that I only started thinking about it over the last few years. From being really little, I used to always have these like impulsive thoughts in my mind, and I was always like quite anxious. Yeah. But it was like a little prayer, and I used to say, and it would happen like 50 times before I went to sleep, or just throughout the day I'd be talking, and then I'd have to like say this 3 times, and I wouldn't really be conscious of it, but it'd be like a thing going around all the time. And I just thought it was because I worried a lot. I worried about, there's something bad going to happen. And I used to say, please don't anything bad happen. And I used to say everything twice. Please don't anything bad happen. I would never change anything. Please everything be okay. And I love being a girl. And I did that from the age of 4 or 5 to the age of like 24. And I just thought, oh my God, you've just spent 20 years trying to convince yourself you was happy being a girl. Because I was terrified of what it might mean if I didn't.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't change it.
And did anyone else know you did this?
I've known for a few years now, but at the time I didn't know.
Well, when you did do it,
Yeah.
and look how amazing it is now,
Yeah, it's incredible. And I hate the thought of what I've put them through. But I'm just so happy that they see the light back in my eyes now.
Yeah. Because obviously I have only known you recently, but you do have like the sparkliest eyes.
Oh, thank you.
There's this quality about you that is like, you're so alive. You're really happy.
That's so nice, yeah.
And so I'm interested, I wonder what it was
Yeah.
when you weren't. And
A lot of people say that to me, actually, like, I was going to ask you if you're happy, but I can just tell. And for a long time, that light went out. As I was a kid, being a kid, I was always that. I was always, like, happy, and no one would have ever known I wasn't okay. I was always, like, going out, bouncing around the dance floor, doing this, doing that. I would never want anyone else to feel sad or know that I was sad, because I didn't want anyone to feel like I was feeling.
yeah, it's funny that, isn't it? Because it's in fact incredibly simple to make people think you're all right.
Yeah.
You just have to like block
Yeah.
it and
Yeah.
and everyone is like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Obviously there are perceptive people around you who go.
Yeah.
But I think it's important to say that how did we get this happy Jax? Well, you faced up to some stuff that was obviously internally, but you had support, and it was really simple support, which was like just let them decide and follow their lead, and that's kind of what this whole conversation is about in a way.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
as simple as that.
Yeah.
Um,
Because it's not about gender. It's about life.
right.
I've gone back into a prison and taken prisoners on this journey, and it's inspired prisoners to realise that it's never too late to change your own life, and stop taking drugs, and stop self-harming, and embrace the scars and not be ashamed of them, and realise that it doesn't matter how far along you are, how old you are, what position you're in. If you can look yourself in the mirror and tear yourself apart and do the difficult things and do everything that you're avoiding, you can find happiness and change your life if you really want to. But you have to have those difficult conversations, and you have to face up to what you don't want to face. and that changes people because we're all constantly in transition, whether that's, you know, leaving a relationship, moving job, moving country, coming out of prison, leaving the military, you know, changing gender, whatever it is. We've all got to constantly adapt to the changes in our life and figure out how to do that. And, you know, the most common phrase said on people's deathbed is, I wish I'd have lived a life more true to myself, not what other people expected of me.
Yeah.
So for me, it's just not about the gender. It's just irrelevant. It's what do you really want? Because the happiness you're looking for is in the work that you're not doing.
Yeah, and also the idea, people don't seem to think of the taxing nature of trying to fit in as being as much hard work as trying to say who you are. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
It's easier to say who you are.
Yeah, it's pick which hard one you want because life's hard anyway.
Yeah.
So it's going to be really hard if you continue to hide it, and it's going to be really hard if you if you tell the truth.
Yeah.
So just pick which one you want because there's only one that's going to lead you to happiness. Because it's always going to come out in some way if you suppress how you're feeling.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what happened with me. It would just come out in every other way, whether I was crying drunk, whether I was fighting, whether I was kicking off with prisoners, whatever I was doing. It was just coming out in a different way.
Well, this has been such an amazing conversation.
Oh.
Thank you so much. I mean, I feel like what I want to say is like we'll put in the show notes some good resources for people that you can find things. Are there any specifics that you two can think of that are good resources for parents or people who are thinking about transitioning that you can?
I mean, my Instagram, because we do a lot.
Yeah.
And I'm going to write a book.
Yeah.
Great.
But I can't actually tell you resources because I've actually, as amazing as they are, I've never used them.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay. Well, that's
Because I've been lucky enough to have a support network and just figure it out and allow, because every person's journey is different.
And your Instagram is
Jax Ryder Feeley, yeah.
Jax what?
Jax Ryder Feeley.
Oh, okay. I thought it was something else. Okay, so and we'll put that in the show notes as well. So, you two, what's next?
Oh,
What's next, Mum?
no idea with you. I just wake up each week and think, God, what's going to happen now? What's going to hit me across the face with this week?
Yeah. No, it's, you know what? I said to my mum 2.5 years ago, I'm going to hit the mainstream media and I'm going to make sure everyone in this country knows what it means to be transgender and change the way people speak about this and think about it. And that's a very big mission. But I think over the last few years, you've realised I wasn't lying. And, you know, I've been trying to build something that, you know, my Instagram, for example, I've only just left the prison service to really sort of go all in on this. But I've spent the last 2.5 years trying to build something that people can find. And when they do find out who I am, they can find all these things. And I've been saying the same things for the last 2 years. And they see from the beginning, they see what my family's thought. They've seen how I've felt at different times, how I've looked, what I've done, you know, having all these conversations on podcasts and doing these different things. And they find all this information of what I've been through and how to deal with it and how it's impacted prisoners or how it's impacted my family, or, you know, understand that it affects everyone, not just you. And a lot of it is probably more for the people around the person transitioning of what I talk about. But I'm passionate about building that. You know, I said to you the other day, I said, this sounds really, really sad, but I'm just so proud of my Instagram. And I just sit there and I look at it and I'm like, it's just so pretty. And, you know, I put so much effort into it, you know, and I used to like do a 12-hour shift and then I'd come home and spend 2 hours making like a really good 30-second clip. And I'd be like, look at this, you know, and it's just something I'm really passionate about. But I get so many messages. You know, we had a message I showed you on the train this morning. Someone sent me a message saying, thank you so much for the protest and your words when you did your speech, because my child is in hospital because they tried to take their own life yesterday. Please don't stop. Like, please don't stop this fight. And I'm just like, I promise, I will not stop. So, and now, obviously, I am on TV. On a mainstream channel, with it being nothing to do with me being trans whatsoever, because we're all a human first, and I think that's really powerful. Say again?
This is banged up.
Banged up, yeah.
So you are, we'll put info about this as
Mm.
in the prison. What's it called? The prison?
Shrewsbury.
Shrewsbury. But what's beautiful about it is that there's nothing in the story about you being trans, right?
Yeah, no, not at all. So, you know, the nation watching this programme sees Jax, you know, prison officer, colleague, friend, you know, he might be funny, you might not like him, you might fancy him, but not a single thing is trans. So for me, you know, people may disagree that it needs to be said, but for me that's really powerful, because you don't see people in the media without having the trans label first. And as much as I'm passionate about the visibility, I'm passionate about telling my story, I'm passionate about everyone knowing my journey and being trans, the fact that people are watching this and seeing the human and making those decisions on whether you like that person, whether you don't, based on the human being, and people who may be against transgender people, for example, and they might like me as a person, and then they go away and go, I'll add him on Instagram, and find all this information and go, oh my God, so he's trans, well, but he's normal, or but I fancied him, or but he's dead good at his job, or he's a prison officer. I just think, so you can do that, so I must be alright with trans people then, because I must be alright. I don't need to be bigoted about this.
And there's a future beyond transitioning.
Exactly, yeah, you know, it's not all that I am, you know, it's part of my journey, and I'm really proud of it, and it makes me, but it's not all that I am, and it will change mindsets by doing that, because
It's not just
slowly people who watch that programme will find out, yeah.
It's a very small part. It's a big part, but also a very small part.
Yeah.
Like it's just not. It's not your. Yeah. Well, I think many exciting things are to come.
So we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Thank you both so much. It's been wonderful.
Thank you so much for having us.